The next question comes from Foxy the Pooper. Oh, I love those names. You already visited the Twin Towers of the WTC. Ask this because some of the invited lifts is timed 1970.
I'm a bit confused this question. You already visited the Twin Towers of the WTC, World Trade Center. I've never been to the World Trade Center, but there is a cool movie, which is this one here, with information about the lifts that existed in those towers. But no, I've never been there before.
When did you first become interested by lifts?
5 or 6 years old, I believe. Dad used to work in London, down Bishopsgate. A few times he took me into the buildings down there, and I remember them being express lifts. I mean, you got to remember I was 5 or 6 here, but I still kind of remember pressing a button and watching the lift come up through a cage. It was one of these stairwells that goes around the outside of the lift, and in the middle you could see into the shaft all the way down. So it was quite fun to press the button, watch it come up, and then after it had finished, it was programmed to return to the ground floor. I also remember, instead of drawing pictures of cars and what everyone else used to do, I used to draw pictures of lifts. I think my interest come from when I was about 5 or 6. How it started, I don't know.
Gary Ashbridge. I've often wondered, what's your main job, or are you still employed as lift mechanic? Never really seen any videos where you film jobs you're on. Smiley face.
By the way, thanks for all your comments. Brilliant. It's quite interesting reading them. I'm not a lift engineer. I'm a technical engineer. I work with access control systems. These are generally big companies. I can't really mention who they are, but there's quite a few big companies we do access control systems for, and it's to control access into buildings, maybe car parks, that type of thing. You can use fingerprints, you can use biometrics, but most people have either a tag or a proper card, and they present the card to the reader. Then if they're allowed to go into there, then it will unlock the door. You can also do all different kinds of things with them. You can do like time and attendance, so that when people go into a building, it clocks the time they went in, and then when they leave, it clocks the time they went out, and then it can be exported into Excel spreadsheets to do wages, of hours worked. That's just part of it. The amount of things you can do with the systems these days. Import CCTV cameras so that if someone holds the door open, it pops up with a CCTV image of the door in a live image. There's lots of things. So that's what I do. I'm a technical engineer, so I've done installation, I've done service, gone through all of that, and now I spend 50% of my time in the office and 50% of my time out on the road commissioning systems, and generally doing anything that the other guys can't do. It takes me into all different kinds of buildings and places, which is where I got all my videos from. Well, some of them anyway. Now that I've said that I'm not actually a lift engineer, if I were to film the job that I do, then that could put me in trouble. I know of 2 people on YouTube that have had to close down their YouTube accounts, mainly because their company had obviously seen them, and then they are exposing what they do as a job, the buildings they work in, how they fix things, and sometimes companies don't like that. I mean, a particular engineer that I know about was filming a new product that they had just released. That person was showing how it worked, could be picked up by other companies. So I don't ever film my job just because I work in security, and I don't think I really should be filming what I do as a job just because other people won't like it. Lifts, on the other hand, doesn't really matter so much because it's not the job that I do, so I've got no employer which will take offence to the stuff that I upload. Question 35, please, Dennis.
This is mine. How long have you been on YouTube?
I've been on YouTube about a year after YouTube started, so I joined in 2008. My first account was called Flight Matt. I'm interested in planes as well. I changed it to Matt and Chay, and then, which I will explain later, we become Mr. Matt and Mr. Chay. How we got that name, it's later. It's my last question, which I shall answer right at the end.
What's your worst day filming an elevator, and why? What happened?
My worst day. I didn't really have any bad days. The only days where I consider them as being bad is where I've not really found anything and I made quite a big effort to go and find some. I've got some notes on my screen here. I'm recalling when I used to go and film public lifts. Now that was back in about 2009, 2010. Bedford, Sutton and Leeds. Leeds in particular, I didn't really film anything that interesting. So I think worst experiences is having to pay for parking, getting home late, doing a lot of walking around and filming absolutely nothing.
Have you ever got caught by a security guard? If yes, where? How was the story?
Yes, I have. It's quite recent. And I did make a movie which is on YouTube. I only give people a link that really want to know about it. And I'm not going to make it, I'm not going to put it on public. So if you want a link and I know you, then I shall give it to you. If not, then I prefer to keep that to myself. But it did involve me having to run quite a distance.
Do you like your honey?
I think my puzzled face answers that one.
The next question comes from Yo Yes. Why are you afraid of water tanks?
Thank you for your question about why am I afraid of water tanks. That was answered on question 28. Next question please, Dennis. Question number 40. Wow.
What do you use to edit your videos?
I use two products. I use Pinnacle Studio 18 for most things, and I also use the Adobe range of products, which is Adobe Premiere, After Effects, and you have to use the media encoder as well to export the data. Pinnacle Studio is what I use mostly because some of my videos take a long time to edit. I'm very fussy. I'm a bit of a perfectionist as well, so when I play it back and so it's not quite right, then it just doesn't get uploaded until it's absolutely perfect. And sometimes I have to go back to the site and film something else that I've missed, because when I'm reviewing it I'm thinking, hang on a minute, I didn't film that, and then I have to go back and refilm it. So I find Pinnacle Studio quicker, does quite a few things, but if I want anything complicated then I use Premiere. Premiere, what can't you do in Premiere? It's quite complicated, it does take a little bit of learning, but it's much more controllable, it's much more reliable, and you can just, anything you can think of you can do. Stabilization, for example, I'm just learning it now. Adobe After Effects, just learning how to do the stabilization. I was using Pinnacle Studio for that. It hasn't worked really for my latest siren video, so I've spent probably a couple of days now experimenting with this, trying to get it to do what I want it to do. For this I have to use Adobe After Effects, and then that is exported back into Adobe Premiere, and then you have to export it. So there's a lot of things to do, but the thing is, this is where I get my practice from. Yeah, it's taken probably a couple of days to learn how to use this, because even the stabilization has got different settings on it and I haven't quite found what I want yet. But that's how you learn things, really, just spend time messing around with them. Answer to your question is Pinnacle Studio most of the time for simple stuff. Anything complicated, then I use Adobe Premiere and After Effects.